Extremely uncomfortable. Something I've never, ever done before.
If you want to grow your business, if you want to grow personally, you've got to do things that are difficult. You've got to be uncomfortable.
I remember being outside the building thinking, oh God, like my heart's racing.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, what am I doing here? Why am I doing this?
My anxiety, my ADHD, my kind of like strangeness and uniqueness, I think it's a bit of a superpower, to be honest with you.
In my life, I've never done a presentation in front of 80 odd people that were in the room at the time, specifically about something I hadn't prepared for.
So, welcome back to British Business with Matt Holland. That's me, and I'm here today again with my co-host Tom McIlvenny.
Thank you.
How are we doing today, mate?
All good today. Thank you. No fleece today. I went for after the abuse I had in previous episodes. Yeah.
I'm
Thought,
sorry
why
about
not?
that.
I'll go plain Jane today.
I'm a bit mean.
No,
yeah,
it's fine.
Yes. No. Are you feeling comfortable today, or are you feeling uncomfortable?
Well, yeah, uncomfortable.
You're feeling uncomfortable. What,
yeah.
Because of me? Or?
No. This is the podcast is new, isn't it?
Yeah,
It's something we're putting together.
Well, I'm asking you that because that's what we're going to talk about.
Right. Good.
We're going to talk about being uncomfortable, what it feels like, what our experiences are like, but why it's important. That's something else. Like, I remember at the end of last week's episode, Morgan was kind of saying, like, he was giving me some feedback, and I was kind of questioning myself, thinking, have I done it right? And it was a bit uncomfortable. Yeah. Like, it wasn't like... I think as business owners, you aren't used to being criticised or like so having like feedback, whether it's constructive or negative or positive or whatever it might be, it's that comfortable or uncomfortable kind of feeling. It's good. I like it. How do you feel about being uncomfortable?
Yeah, I mean, many years ago, being uncomfortable it's not a nice feeling, isn't it? And I had a different perspective, I suppose, on it then, where I was like, oh my God, I'm doing something wrong. I'm, no good at this. What am I doing it for? Whereas now, as you've just said, any form of feeling of uncomfortable is positive for you. I think it's the only way that as individuals and business owners, we're going to grow.
I think that's the hard truth, is that actually, if you want to grow your business, if you want to grow personally, you've got to do things that are difficult. You've got to be uncomfortable. And I think actually entrepreneurs or business people that don't reach their potential, it's because they shy away from doing the things that makes them uncomfortable. So if you want to be that exceptional person, you've really got to do things that you don't really want to do. Like this podcast, like for both of us, it's interesting because the topic of business, we're both pretty knowledgeable about it. We've failed a lot, we've learnt a lot, we've succeeded, but it's not our comfort zone. We're on episode 4.
Yeah, of this podcast.
It'd be great if we hit episode 400.
Yeah,
that's the goal, is to make this the new norm and become comfortable at it.
Yeah,
but to get to a comfortable level, you've got to go through that.
You've got to go through the pain.
Yeah. From a mentality perspective, like, can you look back in the past and think about things that have been going on or things that you've had to do that are really outside your comfort zone mentally? Like, has there been anything like that stands out going back?
Yeah, multiple things really. I mean, a good example of when I felt uncomfortable relating it to business is when I first started, when it was me just on my own. I was driving around in my little Vauxhall Corsa, tapping suppliers up.
1.2?
Well, yeah, it was actually a black 1.2 Corsa. Yeah, beautiful, great car. Quite a big boot because I used to fill it full of products that I bought. Yeah, the stock from the suppliers. But moments like that, new in the game, wet behind the ears. Yeah, going to an established supplier, trying to persuade them to supply me with their products. Yeah. I remember being outside the building thinking, oh God, like.
Because which brand was that? I mean, can you name the brand? Or
these were clearance days when we used to buy end-of-line clearance products. It was one of the big clearance wholesalers. Called Top Grade. We used to buy an awful lot from them. Being outside the building thinking, my heart's racing. I'm thinking, what am I doing here? Why am I doing this? I'm just going to go home. But then I was like, no, I'm going to do this. This is the right thing for me to do for the business. If I don't create this contact in this network, they're not going to supply me. And in that industry, it's all about relationships. So I was only 21, I think I was at the time. Completely new, never been in a business meeting in my life before.
Yeah.
I was like, no, I'm going to do it. Went in the building,
What would your top tips be to overcome uncomfortable positions in business, like that scenario? What were the kind of the practices that you undertook and kind of approached it? What was your mindset like?
Yeah, I mean, definite positive mindset about it. And simply for me at that time, it was, I just counted down from 10 to 1. I was like, on 1, I'm getting out of this car and I'm going in that building. And counted down, few deep breaths, off I go, compose myself, get in the building. And the next time I did it, same anxieties. Oh God, maybe I've completely fluffed it up last time. They're not going to like me. They're not going to want to supply me or anything like that. And that's where it falls back to just putting yourself in that situation multiple times until it just becomes the norm. And by the 10th time I was down there, it was about rocking up in the car park, going straight in and dealing with my contact there. So really, it was just putting yourself in that situation multiple times. The old reps and sets, as they say. Just get yourself there and get it done.
I think it kind of links into last week a little bit when we were talking about the kind of concept of taking time out of your business. Mm-hmm. I think you can deal with uncomfortable positions and situations a lot easier if you're relatively well rested.
Yes.
If you're stressed and you've got 1,000 things in your head and then you're having to go and deal with something that's not the day-to-day, that's uncomfortable or something you're doing, it just makes it a lot harder. So to link back, if you guys listening on whichever platform you're on or watching, have a look back at that episode and listen in to some of the things that we discussed, because I think taking time out in relation to some of these other topics that we're talking about, I think it's really important, because if you went into that meeting with that clearance supplier for the first time, having worked 3 14-hour days back to back, you're going to not deal with it as best as you could. So that's just something I would add there. I mean, for me, like mental kind of challenges to do with being uncomfortable, like I am actively going through phases now in my kind of business career, my personal development.
Yeah.
Because it's all about personal development, this.
It certainly is.
Yeah. I mean, I'm dealing with a lot of that at the moment. I'm quite an anxious person. I'm a bit socially awkward at times. I have my comfort zone, like I'm comfortable with you. This has been difficult for me doing a podcast. So I've been uncomfortable. I feel quite comfortable now though.
Good.
Because I've done a couple of reps.
Yes, exactly.
And the world hasn't imploded on me. Which
that's the case, isn't it?
Yeah,
what's the worst that is going to happen?
Yeah, you kind of you get into this mindset of like, well, maybe this could happen, or oh no, what about if this person sees it? Or actually, if you just go, does it matter?
No.
If I fail, does it matter?
It won't.
Yeah, I think if you can get into that mindset of like you're prepared to fail, you then become kind of, you get to a stage where you are almost comfortable being uncomfortable. And there's days where I approach things and I'm like, God, I used to really struggle with this.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, just to go back in time, I remember having to, because hiring people and dealing with staff is hard. And like having that first, I mean, it goes back to my pre-business years where I graduated and I went and worked at McDonald's on their graduate program.
Yeah.
And I was learning to be like a store manager. And like dealing with your first disciplinary for me was really nerve-wracking, really scared me. And like if you're a small business and you've got 5 staff members and 2 of them don't get along and you're having to deal with something and you're going to have to dismiss or sack someone, or maybe you've got to make someone redundant, dealing with another human in a difficult situation like that, I think that's one of the hardest things you can do. I really struggled with that in the early days. Like I had some practice at McDonald's dealing with problems, but then when it's your own business and you're very passionate and you care about it, like the stakes are much higher.
Yes.
So mentally I found that very challenging, almost like physically challenging. Like I was like physically allergic to dealing with it. It was like, I struggle.
Yeah.
Like really struggle. But you've just got to rep it out. Like you're saying, like you've got you have to push yourself to do these difficult things. And like, I think what holds some businesses back, it's always the entrepreneur or the business owner, always. But what's holding them back is not being willing to put yourself in a weird situation, or something that's not your day to day. And if you can get into your mindset, for people listening, like doing things that are difficult or doing things that are not the status quo, that is the biggest thing you can do as an entrepreneur or a business owner or in life.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. It'll help you grow mentally to be more resilient to deal with those situations going forward. I know one key tip that both myself and my brother use in our business is if there's ever something we need to deal with, internally with maybe some staff or suppliers, an issue with the carrier or any sort of moment where it's going to be extremely uncomfortable to deal with, we always say, right, we need to put the business first. Take your own personal emotions out of the equation completely.
Yeah.
Put your director hat on. I'm director of Avenue 85, and what is best for the business is this solution or this conversation needs to happen to resolve any friction between maybe two people at work, and step into a different character and deal with it that way. I always find that helps me, and I know it helps my brother deal with any difficult and uncomfortable situations that arise.
It's really interesting that actually, like how to do it, because I think, so what you're saying there is you leave your person, who you are at the door, and you have to put on your suit of armour to be different.
Mm-hmm.
Like this is Matt Holland that runs Holland's Country Clothing.
Yeah.
And then this is Matt Holland that runs Holland's Country Clothing.
Yes.
It's the same person, but it's not. And I think that's a really poignant development point, I would say, is like compartmentalising your person, like who you are naturally.
Yeah.
And then having to become something slightly different.
Yeah, you've got to be a different person in different situations. Obviously, you are the same person, but you've got to...
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, I hope the listeners do at the same time. Yeah,
hopefully our...
I know it's helped me massively, and also my brother when we're dealing with things. It's like, right, no, like best foot forward. What's best for the business? Whatever's best, ultimately best for the business, is best for everybody.
Yeah,
and that's the way it needs to be dealt with.
Yeah, I this is a big topic for me. Like I've struggled with my mental health over the years. Like anxiety really does cripple me at times, and I'm always going to have it like that. It's just who I am.
It's in your nature.
But the other side of me is this kind of this hunger where I'm like, I need to fight that.
Yeah,
I'm not going to back down from a situation that's difficult. I mean, recently I went to a networking event in London last week, and I was really excited to go there, but I could just tell during the day something wasn't quite right. And sometimes these scenarios, they don't go tremendously well. And I went there, and probably, I think from a third person perspective, people there probably thought, yeah, that's just Matt. But I was in pain on the inside.
Yeah.
Like it felt like physical pain. Like I got there, I was just like really nervous. I didn't look around the room when I arrived. Like this social anxiety for me is quite a big problem.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I mean, maybe I should get a therapist, I don't know. But sometimes I'm fine. I'm really confident. And sometimes there's just to be something in the back of my mind and I'm just not 100% there. But I make myself do it.
That's very admirable of you.
Painful.
Painful. No, because you've recognised what situations make you feel uncomfortable, but yet you're still choosing to put yourself in that situation, knowing that you will ultimately overcome it.
So yeah, I mean, just leading on from that point, I actually think my anxiety, my ADHD, my kind of like strangeness and uniqueness, I think it's a bit of a superpower, to be honest with you. Like actually being very aware of yourself, almost over-aware, oversensitive, it makes you really analyse and think about the best approach to situations, and kind of like my different things counterbalance each other. Yeah. So in one hand I'm anxious, in the other hand I'm very driven and ADHD. So I'm kind of like, you end up being really poignant with moments, and then sometimes it's just doesn't fly very well. But I think it works well for me. Yeah, it does. I think as well, like just to go back to like to draw a bit of a circle on being uncomfortable. Like when you go back to like your team in the business, and you think about staff, and I think it's important to like look at when you're thinking about this, and maybe listeners, like we're talking a lot about ourselves as business owners, but we're actually also mentors, coaches, leaders within our businesses. And that might be you have 2 or 3 people in there, but you have a bit of a responsibility as a business owner to try and encourage people to do the same thing.
Yes.
Like, obviously, employees, it's slightly different. You don't want to make them uncomfortable in the sense like they don't want to do things, but you do want to positively encourage them to take a risk and do things that's not day to day. I mean, do you have anyone, like, you can't say names, obviously, but I can think of a few scenarios where I've tried to encourage people and it's actually worked out really well.
Yeah, no, definitely within our business, there's a few key people where we've maybe taken them to networking events with, I know our developer hosts it's sort of an e-commerce camp every quarter, really. And we took someone from the office there. And this person had never been out of the office to any networking event, with the business before. But I actually got some real enjoyment over just observing her work through the room, speak to all these different business owners, people in different marketing departments, agencies and such, and she held herself really, really well.
Yeah, I was there that day. I think she did. She was fantastic.
Yeah, and it's that's good to see other people developing.
Yeah.
And pushing themselves, putting themselves outside of their comfort zone.
I mean, that day, that particular e-com event, there was a situation where someone on stage was struggling.
Oh God, yeah.
And you, like a superhero.
Well, not sure about that.
Well, I think so. You came out of nowhere and basically, because the presentation was about your business and email marketing.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
And with no prep, you just stepped up on stage and continued the presentation about your business in front of an audience that you'd had no prep for.
No.
And this lady had to kind of take a sidestep. But I mean, it's interesting that you were able to do that, because that for me would have been very painful.
Yeah, but very.
I mean, how did that make you feel when you did that? Was that uncomfortable for you?
Extremely uncomfortable. Something I've never ever done before in my life. I've never done a presentation in front of 80 odd people that were in the room at the time, specifically about something I hadn't prepared for, because I was just literally having to read off the slides that were already within the presentation. Fortunately for me, it was about the email marketing for our business, so I could relate to it and sort of manage it that way.
Yeah, I stitched you up that day because I felt bad afterwards, because I was like, because what's the name of the guy? Paul was like, he had the mic and he was like, he kind of took the mic off the lady while she went and sorted herself out.
Yeah.
Because it's hard. It is hard being
very hard.
I mean, I can't do public speaking. I've really struggled. Like, my wedding, standing up in front of friends and family, which is where you should be comfortable. That was really hard.
Very difficult situation.
But I was like, I looked at Tom and I was like, go on, Tom.
Yeah.
Go on.
You do it. You
go
say.
Go on, Tom. You take over. And then next minute, Paul's walking over the mic. And I was
had
like,
no option.
I was like, oh my God. I full on stitched him up.
You got me. I remember my brother saying, Tom, he looked at me, he was like, Tom, you don't have to do this if you don't want to. And he'd already given me the mic by that point.
Yeah, because I was stitching you up, and then your brother was sat next to me in between us, and he was like, you don't have to do it.
You don't need to do this. You don't have to do this. Bless him. He's been very supportive. But ultimately, it was something I've never thought about doing in my life before. Yeah. I was put on the spot in a situation, and I thought, you know what? What's the worst that can happen here? And started reeling through the slides. And 5 minutes in, the nerves had calmed down. I started to walk around the room, ask the people that were there at the event any questions, and I fielded some really interesting questions, which fortunately I was able to relate to, because it was mainly about the email marketing, email flows within our business. So I was more than comfortable answering those. But that is a key thing, pushing myself to do that. I could have easily gone, no, thank you, Paul. I don't want the microphone, and just sit there, and there would have been a void for 30 minutes. Where I thought, you know what, I'm enjoying the day. I was, good frame of mind. I'd slept well the night before. I was clear-headed. I'd been to the gym that morning, so I was feeling good about myself. So I think those are key things.
That's really interesting, actually, preparation. So if you know you're going into an uncomfortable situation, a really good tip would be prepare.
Definitely.
Like, And for me, one of the things I do is I kind of over prepare mentally. I kind of like, I'm constantly thinking about it, like, and it is hard. But actually, that preparation, it does serve you well. But then equally, I think as business owners, sometimes things get just put in front of you at short notice, and you, like that scenario, like you in those conditions, you were relatively well prepared, but it was thrust on you. Yeah. I mean, you've done public speaking since then, haven't you?
I've done another one for Paul, for another one of his events. That was about Black Friday preparation.
I think I stitched you up again on LinkedIn on that. I'm sure
you called me out.
Up. Yeah,
you did.
There's a theme there.
Yeah, there is. Yeah. I don't know why I'm friends with you now. But looking at this.
Yeah, I think Paul put a post up and I tagged you and said Tom will do it.
Yeah, Tom will do it, and I know what Paul's like. He doesn't take no for an answer. I mean, fair play to him. And I did do that one. And
how did that go? Because I didn't attend that.
No, I actually enjoyed that because you called me out and I said to Paul, look, I'll do it. Again, like we tied back to previously, I put it in the diary. I'm doing it that day. I can't let him down and back out last minute.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to go and do it, and I will feel extremely uncomfortable, but I will get it done. So that morning it was all the same sort of thing. Prepping beforehand, slept well the night before. Trained in the morning, good headspace, got to the event, and ultimately it was actually quite good. I was on a panel of 4 people, so it was sort of shared amongst the group. But no, really good event, and I'm glad I've done it. And I've said to Paul, the next one you want me to do, by all means, I will do it.
That's it. So that's really interesting because you've gone through a process there where you started something, it was really uncomfortable. You've then been called out by me again, but it was reasonably comfortable. And now you're talking about doing it for a third time potentially.
Yeah.
So I would say you've actually kind of come full circle in the sense that you're now comfortable being uncomfortable in that scenario, that's the holy grail in this conversation. And that's why we're talking about it, because you do need to do things. Like I'm thinking back now, and I'm analysing and thinking, like I remember like Andrew Mailer. He used to work for an agency that we both worked with in the past, and he asked me to do a talk. I've been asked a few times. I've always said no.
Yeah,
it is my worst nightmare.
I'm going to call you out on the next one.
Don't you dare! Don't you dare! It's hard, isn't it?
Well, can you give me an example of when you've dealt with something, a situation, or anything that's occurred where it was extremely uncomfortable, but you've done it, and in hindsight, you look back and you think, actually, why was I so anxious about this? I can think of
several things. The one that I'll just rattle off and leave and won't give to... Well, actually, I'm not sure I can say that. There's a lot of things that I've done over the years that have been particularly uncomfortable. I mean, one of the scenarios, it's similar to this podcast, really. It's doing video content.
Yeah.
So if you go on the Holland's Country Clothing YouTube channel, there's some legacy videos on there. And I think when this podcast comes out, we've not really done any content for quite a while, but one of my big things this year is to do a load more video content. So we're in the process of maybe hiring, we're even thinking of bringing Morgan on as a bit of a marketing support guy to come in at a senior level and give us some support. But I think we need like a videographer, content marketer. We need to be in front of camera. We need to be about the identity. But going back a couple of years, we did some videos on YouTube. It was in 2022 and 3. And they were so hard. And I mean painful.
Yeah.
Like standing in front of a camera talking about product. Like there was one video, I think the first video we did was on Blundstone boots, and it was painful. But painful.
Yeah, I can imagine, but you got through it.
Did get through it, and by the end, and actually what came out of it, and this is the other thing, is that when you're going through an uncomfortable period, actually, it's not as bad as you think.
No.
That's the interesting thing, is that when you sit back in a moment of reflection, it wasn't that bad. This didn't happen, or this could have gone worse. It went okay.
Yeah. What's the worst that could have happened in that situation? You got a few views on your product videos, but I'm sure one of them's got 10,000 plus, is it not?
Yeah, there's been a couple of videos that have kind of popped off, and then we've not done content for 2 years. So that's about consistency, which is maybe a topic we'll cover in the future. But I think, I think to round it off, the concept of doing uncomfortable things is incredibly important if you want to grow your business or if you want to grow personally. It's the only way you can do it is by doing things that you don't really want to do. And the other side of it, from an entrepreneurial and business perspective, if it is something that you're really not great at, bring talent in.
Yeah, get someone else to do it.
To counter this conversation, if it is really that painful and you've tried it and it's not working, it's okay to accept defeat.
Yeah.
And actually go, well, I've given it a go. I've held my head high. It's reasonable to go, do you know what, actually, I'm gonna bring in someone to look after that and deal with those things. And then play to your strengths. So it's a bit of both, really. And I think that's an interesting way to close it off, is that actually, while we're saying everyone should push themselves to be uncomfortable, give it a go.
I think you have to.
But if it doesn't work out, like if you'd gone on stage that day and like fumbled and then I'd had to come on stage and save you, perhaps, which wouldn't have happened, you probably wouldn't do it again. But that's fine, because you gave it a go.
Yeah.
So I think that's something to consider. And I mean, anyone listening, like, if there's anything that you guys want to weigh in on, like if anyone wants to comment on the videos or the podcast episode and just give us your thoughts, and I mean, maybe even people are brave enough to share some uncomfortable scenarios they've been in. Keep it PC. That's all right. But yeah, I think we'll finish the episode off there. So obviously we're in episode 4 now.
Yes.
I think it's going okay.
Yeah, enjoying it. Hope everyone else is.
Are we going to carry on, or is this it?
I think we will carry on.
Yeah,
I think keep going.
Last 4 weeks have been good. It's been difficult finding the time.
Yes.
But actually, a little bit like going back to the previous episode where taking time out of your business, this has been really good for me, like to think and compartmentalise stuff and thinking about growing myself and being uncomfortable, all the rest of it. It is good. But if people are enjoying these episodes, please do like subscribe on YouTube, comment. It really helps with the algorithm. Like the videos. Same on Spotify. You can. I think there's a little section where you can leave a rating. That'd be really helpful. Same on Apple Podcasts. All these different things. If you want to support us, we're trying to support business owners through challenges and kind of give you guys ideas on how to deal with things. So please back us. We'd really appreciate it. And we'll leave it there, and we'll see you in the next episode. Cheers, Tom.
Thank you very much.